Alright, Something Bunkum, episode 12. Workflow. Man, have I got a lot to talk about this subject. To do so, I have my notes. Sexy ass notes. This is something that I've actually really integrated into my own life. This Ember coffee is delicious, by the way. So, workflow. What the hell does that mean? I think the first time that I was introduced to the idea of workflow in a way that maybe made sense, that there was a practical usage of the word, was when I was in a coding boot camp with Awesome Inc., which is in Kentucky. Long and the short of it is, we became web developers. It was a trying time in my career. What was needed was a way, a methodology for getting shit done. And that might seem easy. You just make a to-do list. It's not. It's so easy to get distracted when you have to do a blue million things. It's all on your to-do list, and then boom, errands come up, boom. Well, how do you prioritize? Boom. There's like freaking 20 things you gotta do. You forgot your list somewhere. You gotta make a new one. It's awful, right? Oh, and then you have to like collaborate with other people. Now, there's many ways to skin the proverbial cat. I love cats. I don't want to skin any cats. Whatever. We're gonna go through a few of those right now. The workflow ideas, I'm just going to list them off. I'm going to talk about how they relate to each other, specifically how I use them. Boom. The Ivy Lee methodology. 2. Hills and mountains. This has to do with goals. 3. The tomato timer, AKA POMODOROS. Perhaps you've heard of them. 4. The errands list. 5. Expectations. 6, that's right, the habit tracker. And 7, review. So what in the hell does all of that mean other than just a bunch of words? The Ivy Lee method. So there's a whole story about who Ivy Lee is and his relationship with, I believe, Charles Schwab. I'm not going to go into that because there's this awesome website where you can literally read the entire thing, and it's a really cool story. It's like reading H.P. Lovecraft. You read the story and you're like, I know what's going to happen in the end. Well, it's because people ripped off H.P. Lovecraft, right? Or reading Tolkien, you're like, oh, well, duh, that's a very stereotypical ending. It's because everyone ripped off of it. Ivy Lee, that method, you're going to find that in Agile, in Lean. There's a ton of these different methodologies. They all had the same premise, and it is this. You make a to-do list, a short list of things you need to do, and you prioritize them. That's it. While that seems very, very simple, and it takes effort to do, it's incredibly powerful. The idea is you do a big old brainstorm. What do we need to do? All the things you need to do. These are things that you can realistically do. These are not goals. These are tasks. Then you make a short list of them. These are the priorities. What are these 6? And you can have any number you want, but you limit yourself. 6. What are the 6 things? And you only focus on those 6 things. There's an extra step, which I sometimes employ, and that is this. Of those 6, what are the priorities? Number them 1 through 6. Once you start on one, you do not do any of the others until that one is finished. Now, the actual Ivy Lee method goes a little bit further because it's for collaboration and these sorts of things, which you can read about on the website. One of my friends, his name is Dr. Richard Feenstra. Here's his website. One of the big conversations that he and I had together had to do with reaching goals. The way he put it was hills and mountains. Now, I've probably bastardized his entire thing, but this is what I took from it, and it's what I use on the reg. What's your mountain? That's your far-reaching goal. What's the thing? I want to be a working actor in LA, right? Great. So I could just move to LA and hit that up. But there's hills that reach up to the mountain, and you got to climb those hills. You got to know where you're going, or else you might be making lateral movements. You might even be going over a hill that you think is going to take you there, but actually you go down this other side and you're into the forest or something, the labyrinth. What Richard had and I talked about was this idea of defining, sounds obvious, but defining what is your mountain. Then, what are the hills? What is your map that leads you there? How this applies to the Ivy Lee method is this. I have several to-do lists that are based on Ivy Lee. One of them is a hills list. One of them is a mountains list. One of them is an errands list. Now that might sound like a lot, but you're talking about 3 things. It's a lot packed in to 3 different things and organized in my brain. The mountains, these are not things I'm doing today. They're things I'm working towards. The hills are things I'm doing today. The errands list, those are things that come up. Those are things like, I gotta mow the grass. Well, I don't want that to be on my hills list because mowing the grass really doesn't get me to LA, but it still has its place. The hills list, everything on that list should have to do with the mountains in some way. You're pushing forward. That's the idea of hills and mountains. The last part of what I took from Richard's talk, there's a point.
There is a moment.
Perhaps it's once a week, perhaps it's once a month, but it needs to be regular where you review. Is that mountain the one I want to climb? And think, what are the definitions? What am I trying to go towards? And what am I actually making steps to going towards? Do they meet up? If they don't, you need to reassess. Interesting, I would say. Now, as this pertains to the Ivy Lee, I think that should be pretty obvious. What needs to come first? What needs to be for not right now? For a person like me that utterly deplores schedules, right? I hate them. But the world runs on schedules. Everyone likes to be on time and shit, right? I don't. But I am for things that are priority. I have to orchestrate my world in a way that I can actually do. Net. I have to orchestrate my world in a way that I can actually follow. All right, motherfucker. I a ninja. Hustle. The habit tracker. Now, I've already talked about the habit tracker and how it works. It was in my very first Something Bunkum episode. It's called Habit Tracker. This has been an incredibly useful thing for me to gauge and review what I am actually doing. That's huge because you can have 16 lists of all the things, you know, that you need to do. And you can review them and manage them and get creative and draw and color them and use Tangwar on them as I do. What are the things outside of those lists that you're doing that are taking up your time, right? So like you're trying to eat the cheeseburger, but you're full of fries. I'm not trying to diss fries, but the cheeseburger's the entree. If you're gorging yourself on the filler, you don't eat the entree. Just for as an example, all day today I've been thinking about filming this episode, and I've found somehow a way to do every other thing on my list but this. That's a problem. On my habit tracker, I have a little wasted time for over an hour. Yes. And I can look back and say, okay, why am I doing that? But why am I doing it? Maybe I need to actually be doing something, incorporating something else into my life, into my schedule, so that I'm not wasting my time. I need to readjust. And that draws me to my next point. Review. Review, review, review. That's what I wrote in my notes right there. So review can seem like not a big deal or maybe a waste of time. It is absolutely a big deal. It is not a waste of time. The reason is because it's so easy to get off track. It's so incredibly easy to be going along with these hills. I'm doing my goals, and before I know it, after 2 or 3 weeks, I look at my habit tracker. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing this all the time? I've gotten involved in this project over here. Oftentimes it's because I've started another tabletop RPG game, and I'm running it, and I'm starting to schedule everything around that and my world, you know, because it's creativity, the world surrounds it, and I go on a tangent. And I realize that the last few don't really have much to do with what I'm trying to do, reviewing. And that has helped me greatly. I don't have much else to say about it, but it was Richard Feenstra who really pushed that on me. He was like, you really need to review once a week or once a month and get back on track, because you will get off track. Pomodoros. So the tomatotimer.com website is highly useful in my opinion. I use it all the time, whether I'm playing music, whether I'm reading a book, what have you. The way that Pomodoros work is that you work for 25 minutes, and at the end of that, you then take a short break or a long break. So a short break is 5 minutes, long break is 10 minutes. It is so important once you get into that groove of working on the Pomodoro. You're really feeling it, man, right? Ding! occurs, you got to take a break right then. Because yes, you feel like you can just finish it and you feel that tension building. You're like, I'm going to do it. I don't want to quit. You will burn out if you don't take a break. Take that 5-minute break, hit the timer, walk away, make yourself. When you hear the ding, you come right back. I feel like people that do HIIT exercises understand this really, really well. Anyway, that's enough about Pomodoros. Expectations. I got to expectations from one of my break times. I was watching YouTube and I was like, I don't want to just watch YouTube. That's ridiculous. I'll watch a TED Talk. And I saw something about expectations. Now, I tried to find it. I can't. So I found a couple other ones that I linked to, which I watched, and I think they're very good as well. But this one, man, it was real good, and I wrote it down, expectations. Can't remember exactly what it was. Oh well, here's the idea though. What is success? What is productivity? Did you have a productive day? Was it a successful day? Have you been successful in 2020? How do you define that? Now, that's a metaphysical question in a lot of ways. If you're trying to climb a mountain, if your expectation is to reach the top, that's different than I'm setting off to climb this mountain. But really what I'm trying to do is get exercise. You know? Like, I'm going to go run today and see how far I can go. That's different than when you get back, you're like, yeah, I just ran a half a mile. That wasn't successful. Well, if that's as far as you could go, actually, you were utterly successful. What are the expectations of these hills? They're supposed to push toward the mountain. What's the expectation of the mountain? In my case, it's to reach the top. And my expectation has led me to say something like, well, this is where I want to be within 2 years. I'm framing that goal. I do understand that some people probably are able to just say, I'm going to go do the thing, and then they go do it. Maybe Elon Musk does that. I don't know. They're incredibly driven people, and they have their own way of doing it. This is my way. Does seem to be working. It's led me to do some fulfilling things with my creativity. And we'll see where that goes. Ooh, I had another question that I'd written down. What makes it worth your time? So this is a big one for me. For instance, with gaming. Now, I'm talking about tabletop RPGs, role-playing games. Maybe you're talking about video games or minis or sports or whatever. How do you validate? How do you justify what you do? The way that it's valid is, yes, do you want to do it? Do you have the desire to do it? But 2, does that desire, does accomplishing this thing coincide with the mountain?
Climb every mountain.
It's that simple, and that's all in the review. Hopefully this has been informative to you all. It's not just novelties. They are not just novelties to me. They're literally how I structure things. And sometimes I don't. I guess that leads me to my very last point. These tools are incredibly useful until they're not. They're incredibly useful until using the tool becomes the errand, right? Oh, I've got to fill out my habit tracker. I got to take the time to do that. Yes, there's a process to do it, and it's meditative, and it's good. When the habit tracker becomes one of the to-do lists, it's a waste of time, right? Picking things up, using them the way they're supposed to be used, the way they are beneficial to you, and then throwing them away when they're not useful anymore. That is this episode. I've been thinking about this episode for a while, but I wanted to give myself some time actually with the habit tracker and integrating it into my overall scheme before I actually made the episode. And that is this something Bunkum. Bunkum. Oh. Something Bunkum, number 12. Something Bunkum, number 12. Something Bunkum, Episode 12. All right, something Bunkum. Episode 12.